I'm Benjamin Lupton, and this talk is elegantly produced and consumed compiled packages. And you'll be able to find the talk notes later. At this URL, I'll put them up later today. So first, a little bit about myself. I've been doing Node.js since version 0.3 back in 2010. Originally, I was writing build tools to help with JavaScript projects at the time. Eventually, I came and wrote a static site generator called DocPad in 2011, and then that became one of the biggest Node projects, at least the static site generator. And that was really big for about 3 years. Still is pretty big today, but it got 2,000 stars on GitHub, 500 daily active users, and a pretty big ecosystem. Now I have 260 open source projects, and through them is 20,000 stars. 180 NPM packages, and they make up 4 million downloads a month. And one of the packages I'll be talking about today is projects. It's been around for 3 years, and it's used by 110 of my own packages. Whoa, gosh, I'm excited and nervous. All right, so the other one I'll be talking about is additions. That's been around for 1 year, and it's currently getting 600,000 downloads a month. And the technology for it has been around for about 2 years, but it's really refined in 1 year, hence why I'm talking about it now. So let's talk about the value that you're going to receive from this talk. Maintaining all of these packages, 110 packages if we decide to change the copyright owner, we want to update the README style, so we want to improve our installation instructions. Maintaining all of them manually would be tedious and not really possible. So we've set up a situation to automate pretty much all of it, and as well to improve environment support from new Node versions and browser versions as well. Oh my gosh. Whew. Sorry guys, I'm really nervous about this talk. Traveled a long way. All right. Yeah. Let me just catch my breath, sorry. Alrighty. So, yeah, the biggest value, or one of them, is to save time producing and maintaining packages through automation. And the best way I like to think about this is never having to maintain a package badge or a README badge ever again. So you know the Travis CI build badges or the NPM version badges or the outdated badges. The general way people maintain these badges is to copy the HTML code from somewhere else, grab the URL, grab the image and the name, customize them and put it in. And that's just like one example from the tedious things we have to do in README files. Another one is to use your favorite modern tech with less regressions and never have modern tech break old tech again. So I'll go into this a little bit more, but it's pretty much when you adopt like ESNext and it breaks legacy environments. So we won't have to worry about that again. Now, the other piece of value is to inform consumers with information they need to optimize and control their consumption and bundles. And I like to think about this as never being surprised by a package tech again. So, for instance, you could be a consumer and you go and use a package and then something goes wrong and you need to debug it, but it's in a language you don't know, and then you're kind of screwed. At least you've lost a few days, so you need to find a different package. So with this automation, we'll actually be able to inform consumers about the package technology we use in a really elegant way. And all of this comes at the same effort for producers, or even less effort because of the automation features. And for consumers, it's going to be less effort for them because they're more informed and a lot of it is also automated. And it's pretty much a win-win. So how is this all possible? So there's 4 steps that makes these benefits possible. And the first one is to use a meta builder to automate meta file maintenance. So this automates data between package.json files and README files by injecting data into it. We'll go into that in more details. Publish at least the source edition and the compiled edition. This allows us to support environments like, say, Node 6 with technologies that just is for Node 6. And then for IE 10, we can compile the package down to the lowest common denominator. And we'll go into that in a bit more detail. We can then use the edition standard with a meta builder to inform users of editions so they can pick the best package for themselves and they're no longer surprised. And then we can also use the edition standard with an editions autoloader so the consumer doesn't even need to bother picking, instead it's auto-selected for them, the best one. So step 0, let's make our project. And the project is just going to be a simple project. It's a for each that supports objects and arrays, provides a value, provides the iterator with a value in the key and index, and breaks on return false. So generally the way people would do this, is this going to animate? There we go. So generally the way we do this when we're setting up a new package is we'll enter the name, enter the description, specify the repository status, initialize it with the README, specify the node getting null file, and generate a license. This is the first step for creating a package. And it'll provide us with a README that looks like this, provide us a getting null file that looks like this, provide us a license file that looks like this. So they're incredibly basic. And the getting null file will probably replace, the README we're definitely going to replace, and the MIT license, it has one issue that makes it not really ideal, and it's just the organization name, and it doesn't include things like the email and the URL. And it's not the legal entity name, so we're probably going to have to change that. So the next step is to do npm init. Apparently I need to load the animations twice, maybe. There we go. So we then clone out the repo, we cd into it, we do an npm init, specify the name's just the directory, the version, type the description again so it isn't synchronized. That's a redundant thing we now need to do. It's picked up the get repository, we specify some keywords. The author, we now put in the correct legal entity name with the copyright year, the email, and the title. So again, it's not synchronized with what Git produced us in the README files. And we specify the license. So again, it's not synchronized. So this is where Meta Builder will come in and make that really awesome. The one we'll be talking about is called projects. And this is really the only Meta Builder that I know that provides these benefits. And the one that I'm using in 110 packages currently. So let's talk about how projects works. So we have the concept of metadata files. These are things like package.json, Bower, component, jQuery. And projects will read in these data files, extract the information, merge them in the appropriate order, and synchronize the data between the two. So if you update the data in the package.json, like the name or the description, it will trickle down into these other component formats as well. Then we have the concept of meta README files, such as README, license, backers, contributors, history. And we'll be able to inject the data from these metadata files directly into our README files. Pretty cool, pretty advanced. And as well, projects is even smart enough, so if we detect we have a contributing file example, we'll display that information in the README. So let's talk about how we get set up with projects. You install it locally, and then you can run it. Like this first example, we probably want to use npm scripts. npm scripts are amazing. If you're using gulp or grunt and things like that, a lot of power in npm scripts. There's many good blog posts now about how powerful npm scripts are, and I'll actually show you a little example later. So let's talk about the benefits that then brings to README. So before we had a README that looks like this when we did our first release, version 1, and it's pretty much what most READMEs look like. It's the name, the description, installation instructions, usage, and then just license, MIT, right? And what we'll do when we implement projects is we use these HTML comments instead. And Markdown doesn't render these comments because it renders to HTML. So we'll specify title, badges, description, install, history, backers, license. And the only thing we actually need to manually maintain is this usage information. So anything that's not within a HTML comment is things we can customize. So we can change the order just like a HTML file. But these comments end up getting replaced with actual intelligent data. So we'll split out the comment into, put it between like it's kind of like a comment HTML element, right? So it's got the / and /. So the title pulls in the data from the package.json, renders it with a H1, and then we go down to description, same thing. Install instructions, we actually intelligently put in the correct install instructions for what we detect from the package.json file. And in the end, this projects enhanced README file becomes this really nice README file. So when it's rendered, we get the appropriate install instructions, the installation instructions, and as well how to use it. We get the history file. Now, for the history link, if we have a history.markdown file, it'll point to that. Otherwise, it'll go to our git commit history. That's amazing, right? And then it pulls in the backers, the maintainers, sponsors, contributors. Really nifty, really cool, and it'll pull in the correct copyright information as well. Package.json, so it even enhances our package.json file for us when we first run it. So it injects the missing fields that we need, and it's already got the repository detail before, so it just puts in the bugs URL if that hasn't already been defined to the GitHub issues. License. So the license file, we can just specify this HTML comment, and then that becomes the full license file, and it ends up rendering like this. And it supports the license standard thing where you can say MIT or ISC or whatever you want, or GPL, and it's going to handle multiple licenses correctly, and it's going to show the correct copyright information. Really good, saves a bunch of time. Badges. I talked about how this is so annoying. So here in a package.json file, we just specify the badges we want to list, specify the configuration. So for like Travis CI, we already know the repository details from the repository field. But for the Patreon details, we don't know that, so we specify the badge configuration. In our badges HTML comment as before, that now gets enhanced into this, and it renders like this. So no more editing this HTML ever again, right? And like for me, this is like, wow, because so many packages are now implementing these badges, and fittingly, the project to render these badges is called badges. It supports pretty much every single badge you'll ever see, really nifty. Contributors. So project does something intelligent, pulls in our GitHub contributor details into our README, keeps it up to date, syncs it into our package.json file, and then into our README file and renders like this. And it even gives us links to the person's URL, and then as well the view contributions link. If we have the contributing.markdown file, I'll provide a link to that. Really cool, makes maintenance a lot nicer. Install instructions. Now it's even intelligent. If we've got prefer global to be true, then it's going to make the install instructions to global, and it'll provide the bin details. If you've got the browser field and that's a truthy value, so it's true, or the string to the URL, it's going to add consumption information, installation information for how to use it with popular browser tools such as Browserify and Ender. So CDN. This is all automated. This is really nice. So let's get some more benefits. Step 2 is let's publish at least the source edition and the compiled edition. Why do we want to do this? Let's talk about the problem. So originally at Bevry, which is the community I organize and run, we were originally writing ES5 code. Been running ES5 code since a very long time, since ES5 was out. And it looked like this. And then around 2011, we moved to CoffeeScript because the enhancements in JavaScript wasn't really updating at the time. So CoffeeScript, allowed us a nice syntax, a lot of benefits like classes and things like that. And it even compiled back into ES5 code. That ES5 code on the right is actually what CoffeeScript compiles, which is really nice. But then we moved to Babel, and we thought, okay, great. The new way to do for loops is the for of loop in ES6, fantastic. But then it compiled to this. And this is all fine and dandy, except this symbol.iterator at the bottom right, that was a pain because it broke IE, all versions of IE, even Edge, and also broke Node 0.10, which up until a month ago was used by Meteor, and they consumed some of our packages. So over about 6 months, we had to figure out how do we fix this? How do we use modern technologies and still support legacy environments? And we also complained to Babel, and we're like, this is really dumb. Why is my for of loop breaking IE? Isn't this what a transpiler is meant to fix? And they replied back, and it's for operational parity. So for of loops work with enumerables, and they're a bit different than just the normal for loop. So to have the same functionality as enumerables, you're better off using polyfill instead. Now the other problem that we have is bundles. So the consumer could not just be running Node apps. Maybe they're doing Electron, in which packaging all the JavaScript files into one, or maybe they're doing a web browser where packaging them all up into a bundle is more enhanced. So if you're publishing just the compiled source of your app, then you're going to have a situation where your consumer app, so the consumer's app is running ESNext, your dependency is running ESNext. Now the consumer may just be targeting, let's say, Google Chrome, the latest version, they've got an Electron app, and they're just wanting to target ES 2016, but you've compiled to ES 2015. When the consumer goes and does the production bundle, then you're going to have ES 2016 code paired with ES 2015 code. If you just publish the source, then you get the benefits of just compiling just for ES 2016 code, smaller bundles, and it should result in faster JavaScript. Now, the other benefit is doing things like TypeScript and flow types, so static analysis, but we'll save that for another day. Now, what's the fix? Let's implement NPM scripts to to do a compilation and publish both editions. So this is NPM scripts. It's really nice. Let's talk about how that kind of works. So we'll do, I need to go to next and then go back. So, okay. So we'll do a release, and then that's going to do our compilation and go through all our checks and do everything. This is just npm script, so it's like 5 little lines before, does our ESLint, does our flow typing, and then does our test, and then compiles projects, so that's projects running, does the publish, and then it'll pull up the git tag information for us as well, so we specify that. npm script's really amazing. And then we get new install instructions, so the install instructions we had before, but now there's a new little part to this. Oh no, so far there's not. But we solved the double compile information, and so far the consumer needs to manually require the source one if they want to solve that additions problem, like solve the bundle issue. But that's not optimal because we still don't have any way to tell the consumer about we're now publishing 2 pieces of code. So what we do is we add an addition standard. So this is something we add to our package.json file. It specifies, okay, we've got 2 additions. The first one is source with ESNext. It does the require, and it's got flow type comments. This is the entry point, it's directory, and these are the technologies we use in this addition. And then we compile it down with Babel, and then those are the syntaxes it now uses. And what we do is with that previous install information that Babel compiled, it's now got a new part, which is this additions bit. So the consumer is now informed that, okay, there's 2 additions, so for each source index is the source, ESNext, require, flow type comments, but for each elegant actually aliases that ES 2015 edition, and that ES 2015 edition is the Babel compiled ES 2015 with require modules. And we may need the Babel polyfill just in case. So that's fine, but then it still puts the ownership on the consumer to know and require the correct addition. So there's still a bit of a burden for them. So let's talk about then how we can automate that and make that even easier. So then we install the additions package, which is an autoloader for additions. We add a new index.js file to our package, and it'll just look like this, very easy, and then we'll update our package.json file if we want to point main to the index, so the autoloader. And then we can also, if we're doing testing and we want our testing to run in the correct environment, so on Travis CI, if we want to run our test in the best environment possible, then we can add this bit into our test, and that's going to do load the correct addition. So when we use this autoloader, projects again is intelligent. It updates the information we had before, and they're now saying when you include for each elegant, that aliases index, which is the additions autoloader. And then it says we've got these 2 additions. And it links to the addition so we know more about it. So again, this is really nifty. We get to support the latest environments with the latest code, and we get to support the lowest environments, like the legacy environments, with the same effort and even less effort because we now inform consumers and we automate a lot for the producers. Now next, what's coming? So currently the addition autoloader will try and require each edition, the top edition first, and then the second edition, and then a third edition in that order. And it currently tries and loads it, and if it doesn't load, then it's going to blacklist that combination of syntaxes. And this is working incredibly well. Again, it's used getting 600,000 downloads a month, and we're not really having any issues. We did initially, and now we've refined it, and now it's working incredibly well. But what we're going to do is we'll add feature detection. So that'll have an initial burden initially while we test the features of the current environment, but then after that, all the dependencies will load quicker because we can skip even bothering to load the ones that we don't support. Now, tight integration with bundlers like Webpack and Rollup and Browserify and things like that would be really nice. So adding the addition standard to them via plugins and whatnot so we don't have to bother with the autoloader or skip it entirely. That would be nice. Updating projects so we can bring into a plugin system so we can extend it. And specifically, I want to see something like example, and I can reference an external example file, and then that's going to pull that into the README. And the other thing is for projects to automatically pull in sponsor information. So if you're open source and you've got a company sponsor, you can automatically run projects in all of your projects. Well, I need to rename projects into something else. Projects will automatically pull in your latest sponsors from an API and then update all your projects. So if you've got monthly sponsors, you can do that, and that'll work incredibly well. So that's all I wanted to talk about right now because 20 minutes is not that much time. But the details here is projects up the top. That's the meta builder, additions for the addition standard and the autoloader. For how we set up our own projects, there's this base link here, my website via Lupton, and my community@bevry.me, my GitHub, and my Twitter. So that's everything I want to talk about, and if you have questions, please see me. But again, this is saving us so much time and really nifty. Thanks. All right. Yeah. Yep, I'm all good. If we have spare time, we get questions, I guess. Yeah, sure. Do we have any questions? No? I've explained everything terrifically well. All right, how many people do you reckon is going to use this? Okay, we've got a few. That's fantastic. For all the ones who didn't raise their hand, I need to talk with you a little bit more. Yeah, and it's working terrifically well, and I'm excited to share that with you. Now, the addition standard, if we go to the URL, we'll see all the details about it, and it's really quite detailed, and how it works with new things like the module field or the browser field. And apparently my internet's not working too well. But yeah, I'll leave it there, and if you have questions, you can come up and talk with me. Thanks so much.